Oh, oh, hey, welcome to lesson 2.1, the slopes of lines. This is going to be a little bit of a review from algebra for you guys, but since you probably didn't spend your summer studying much about the slopes of lines, it might be good to review. So without further ado, what is a slope? As you might remember, a slope is just the rise of a line over the run of a line. So for example, we have our line over here. It goes up by 1 and then over 2. So our slope would just be rise, which is 1 over run, 1, 2. That is our slope. And usually we use the letter m to denote slope. So the m of this line is 1 over 2. Okay, so for this lesson, we're going to be looking at slope in 3 different ways. The first way is going to be a graph like we just did. The second way is going to be using just 2 points without the graph. We will find the slope in this way. You might remember the slope formula. And 3 is finding the slope of an equation. These are the 3 ways that we will be finding slope. And it should be a fun time. So let's get into it. So to find the slope of a line, what you do is you find any 2 points. So it doesn't matter, let's just pick these two. And you just count the rise over the run. So in this case, we go up 1 and then over 2. All right, so this slope would be 1 over 2, and the slope is positive because it's going up. Now you might be saying, is the slope always the same? Can you pick any 2 points and have that work? Well, yes, you'd be right. You can pick any 2 points. So let's check out these 2 points. If I go over here, I go up 1, 2, and I go over 1, 2, 3, 4, that our slope would be 2 over 4. And you might be thinking, whoa, you lied to me. It's actually different. Well, it's actually not different because you have to reduce this fraction. And when you reduce 2/4, you also get 1/2. So remember, slopes always stay the same. It won't matter what 2 points you pick. And also always reduce your fractions. That is just good habits. So let's find the slope of this guy right here. Point over here, point over here. We go down 1, 2, 3, and we go over 2. The slope of this line, therefore, is going to be -3 because we went down over 2. And you see how this slope is pointing down? That's another reason it has to be negative. Now, a little bit of a review here, the slopes of horizontal and vertical lines. All right? So in our line right here, this is a horizontal line. You'll see that there is no rise. If we pick these 2 points, you don't go up at all. But you do go over. We do go over. So our rise is 0 and our run is 3. Now it doesn't matter what points you pick. That could be 0, 3, 0, 10, whatever. 0 divided by any number is always just 0. All right, that's our slope for this line. And all horizontal lines have a slope of 0. So a horizontal line, all right, the slope is always 0. Slope always is 0. Now for our vertical line, you'll see, let's pick 2 more points. All right, let's pick these 2. We do, in this one, we go up 3, but we don't go over any. So in this case, we go up 3, our rise is 3, but we don't go over any. It's just a 0. Now, 3 divided by 0, or any number divided by 0, is always undefined. Always undefined. You can't divide by 0, that's a rule. So for vertical lines, which we have right here, the slope is always undefined. And this might help you in a quiz coming up very soon. So I'd say remember that. Slope formula. So let's say that we don't have, what's it called? We're not graphing, we just are given 2 points. Sorry, I'm just going to get this out of here. You're just given 2 points, right? No graph. How could you find the slope? Well, luckily we have this thing called the slope formula, which is the change in y over the change in x. y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. This is the change in y over the change in x. So in this question, it said, find the slope of the line that contains 3, 1, 6, 7 using the slope formula. Of course, we could just graph that and find the slope, right? If we have a graph, we could go over 3, up 1. That'd be our first point, and over 6, up 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Draw our line. And just count out our slope. Let's see. This would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then over 3. So here our slope would be 6 over 3, which we always reduce our fractions, would just be 2. So that would be our slope, right, of these 2 points. But another way to do it is use this formula, okay? So what you do is you just label it. So to find the slope, we're going to say that this is x1 and this is y1, all right? And this is x2 and this is y2. All right, these are numbers. The reason we have these little numbers here is that they're just saying that these ones mean that this is our first point, 3 is our first x, 1 is our first y, and these 2 means that this is our second point. So now we just plug into our formula. So y2 is 7, y1 is 1, so 7 minus 1, and in this case x2 is 6, and x1 is 3. All right, now we just do our math out. So m is equal to 6 over 3, and sure enough we get the same exact answer. So slope formula did work for us. For our second problem over here, I want you guys to try this by yourself, okay? Start by labeling things x1, comma y1, x2, comma y2, and plug it in yourself. The first step, though, is always to write out the formula. So please get in the habit of writing down your formula for your first step, if there is one. All right, pause the video and see if you got this correct. Come back to it in a second. All right, after you pause the video, you should see now that your final answer should have been the slope is -4 over 3. All right, if you lifted 8 over -6, you didn't reduce your fraction. That's not very good. Bad habit. You should always reduce your fraction. And in this case, if you look over here, sure enough, it's down 8 over 6, and you reduce that into 4 over 3. All right, if you got this, good job. Keep rocking. If not, well, check to see where you made a mistake. It's all written out right here. All right, for the final part of this lesson, we're going to be finding the slope from an equation. All right. Now, the general form of an equation, we call this slope-intercept form, is y equals mx plus b. This is very different than the slope formula. This is the equation of a line in slope-intercept form. The reason we call it slope-intercept form is because you have the slope in front of the x. So whatever's in front of your x is your slope, and whatever the b is, whatever you add to it, is your y-intercept. Okay? So let's just take a look here. So whatever's in front of x, remember, is your slope. So we want to determine the slope of y equals 2x plus 5. What is our slope? Well, like I said before, whatever's in front of x is your slope. So in this case, your m is going to just be equal to 2. It's that simple. And this might help you for next lesson, but 5 is your y-intercept. Y-intercept. But for this, it has nothing to do with the slope. We don't care about it. That is the only thing we're looking at. The slope is 2, not 2x, just 2. Our next problem, you'll see we want to determine the slope of this line. But the problem is here, you can't just jump the gun here and say that the slope is 3. All right, that would be bad. Do not do that. All right, I know you're looking for an x, it's a 3. The problem is that y has to be by itself. You have to have it in y equals mx plus b form to find the slope. And in this case, over here, the y isn't by itself. You got this 4 here. So you actually don't know what the slope is yet. To do that, what you need to do is draw a line down the middle, okay? And you have to divide everything by 4, okay? We're going to divide everything by 4 first. You just divide what's in front of y, and when you do that, this cancels, and you get y is equal to, and I know what you're saying, what's 3 divided by 4? Well, just leave it as 3 divided by 4. 3 divided by 4x plus 20 divided by 4 is 5. So our slope here is just 3/4. All right. So remember, if it's not in y equals form, if there's anything in front of the y on this side of the equation, you can't know the slope first. You have to first divide everything by whatever's in front of y. Okay, gotta solve for y. We're gonna try one more of these. This is where it gets a little more complicated, and I can't emphasize enough, this is the most important skill of this whole entire lesson. You really need to get good at this. This would be the hardest one here. We want to find the slope of this line. Now, like I said before, you need to put this in y equals form. And this one, you'll see that there's more than one thing on the side with the y. So we're going to solve for y. I'm going to show you my favorite way to do this. My favorite way to do this is circle whatever is in front of y, okay? Right now we have this negative 2y on this side of the equation. We got to move everything to the other side of the equation to get y by itself. So we're going to circle whatever our y term is, so it's negative 2y, circle it. That means we got to move the 4x over. So let's subtract 4x to the other side of the equation. We're subtracting the 4x over. That gets rid of the 4x on this side. Negative 2y comes down, and that equals 10 minus 4x. All right. Now, it's not good to have, you always want to have your x in front, so let's rewrite this again. That's 2y is equal to negative 4x plus 10. All right, so I just brought the negative 4x to the front, and the 10 went to the back. Now, finally, just like we have here, we have this negative 2 in front of the y. So the final step, just like we did in the last problem, is to divide everything by negative 2. And when we do that, we get, let's see, y equals negative 4 divided by negative 2 is positive 2, x, and 10 divided by negative 2 is negative 5. Now remember guys, this is so important to get good at, so if you have any questions let me know. You need to be able to solve for y to know the slope. So our slope here is just equal to 2 because that is what's in front of our x. Alright, that's it little guys. Remember, don't lock your cat in the bathroom when you leave the house because then he might get hungry and mad at you and he won't talk to you for a week.